Starved, poisoned, locked in a castle tower. In Tudor England, one woman had to drink her own urine to survive, and smuggled a desperate letter to Thomas Cromwell just to beg for her life. Her name? Elizabeth Hungerford. Her husband? Walter Hungerford, executed for treason, sorcery, and what Tudor records called the abominable vice of buggery. But behind the headlines of magic and scandal lies a darker, more haunting tale of domestic abuse hidden behind noble walls, and a woman who found her voice in the most terrifying of circumstances. I'm Claire Ridgway, author and historian, and in today's Tudor True Crime, we're uncovering the real story, Elizabeth Hungerford's story, and why history almost forgot her. On this day in Tudor history, the 28th of July 1540, the very same day that his patron and associate Thomas Cromwell lost his head, Walter Hungerford, Baron Hungerford of Heytesbury, was beheaded on Tower Hill. Cromwell was beheaded for treason and heresy, but the charges against Hungerford were very different. He'd gone down in history as the only man in the Tudor period to be executed for treason of buggery, with him being accused of what was referred to at the time as the abominable and detestable vice and sin of buggery, with William Master, Thomas Smith and others in his household. Yes, it was a crime back then. Hungerford was also charged with treason, not for raising arms against the king, but for aiding a known supporter of the Pilgrimage of Grace rebellion, William Byrd, Vicar of Bradford-on-Avon. Instead of arresting him as instructed, Hungerford had hired him as his chaplain. Then came the more sinister accusations. Hungerford was accused of using magic, yes, sorcery, to try to predict how long Henry VIII would live. Alongside Sir Hugh Wood and a Dr. Magdalen, he reportedly employed occult methods to forecast the king's death, a deeply dangerous thing to be associated with in a reign filled with paranoia. Predicting the death of a Tudor monarch, that could easily be spun into a plot to hasten the king's death. Treason. But perhaps the most disturbing part of Hungerford's story isn't what happened in the courts. It's what happened behind the walls of the Hungerford family home, Farleigh Hungerford Castle. Hungerford's wife, Elizabeth Hungerford, née Hussey, endured years of cruelty at his hands. Elizabeth came from an influential family. Her father was John Hussey, 1st Baron Hussey of Sleaford, an important man at the royal court, serving Henry VIII as chief butler of England and the king's daughter Mary as chamberlain. And her mother, Anne Grey, served Princess Mary as one of her ladies. Elizabeth's marriage to Hungerford, only child of Sir Edward Hungerford of Farleigh Hungerford, Somerset, in 1532, seemed promising, and her father recommended his son-in-law to the king's right-hand man, Thomas Cromwell. In 1536, due to Cromwell's patronage, Hungerford was created Baron Hungerford of Heytesbury. But behind closed doors, Elizabeth's life became a waking nightmare. She was a victim of domestic abuse. In a secret letter to Thomas Cromwell smuggled out of her confinement while her husband was in London, Elizabeth described herself as penniless and as a permanent prisoner in one of her husband's towers for 3 or 4 years. Her keeper was her husband's chaplain, a man named Sir John Lee, who she claimed had tried to poison her. So scared of being poisoned to death was Elizabeth that she was starving herself and resorting to drinking her own urine to survive. "I am like to perish very soon," she wrote to Thomas Cromwell, "and would rather go begging than live as I do." She begged him to help her obtain a divorce. And to his credit, he tried, commissioning Thomas Bennet and William Petre to advance a bill in Parliament regarding the Hungerford marriage. But in a twist of fate, the man she hoped would save her was executed on the same day that Elizabeth was finally freed from her marriage in a very final way, the execution of her husband. We don't know how Elizabeth felt about her husband's very public downfall, whether she was happy or felt tarnished by the shame of it. But in around 1542, Elizabeth remarried, taking courtier Sir Robert Throckmorton as her second husband. They had 4 daughters together before Elizabeth died on the 23rd of January 1554. Hopefully, her second marriage was happier than her first, and Elizabeth had some years of peace and love. So much is written about Walter Hungerford, the charges against him, his execution, and the scandal he brought on his name. He's remembered rather infamously as the only man executed in the Tudor period for treason of buggery. And yet his wife Elizabeth, the one who suffered for years in silence and fear, is so often forgotten. She was locked away, nearly starved, allegedly poisoned, and had to smuggle a desperate letter to Thomas Cromwell just to be heard. That she survived, remarried, and went on to raise a family is remarkable, but she rarely gets more than a footnote. I think we need to remember Elizabeth, not just as Hungerford's victim, but as a woman who found her voice in a time when so many women couldn't. Thank you for watching. If Elizabeth's story moved you as much as it did me, please do give the video a like and let me know in the comments, had you heard of her before? And please do subscribe to my channel and ring that bell for more. See you soon. Bye bye.